Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast. My name's Amanda and I'll be your host for today. Today we're trying something a little bit different. We've got our friend Rory on the line. He's joining us over Skype from Wagga Wagga, Australia, which is a small town in Australia, kind of close to Canberra, or for those non-Australian folks out there, Canberra. Ryan and I met Rory in 2011 on the Greek Island portion of our tour. We connected with him right away over our love of travel. And since then, we've actually connected with him on two different continents, in his home continent of Australia and ours of Canada or North America. All the while exchanging travel stories, discussing all of our loves of travel and how travel has really changed us. So Rory's here to tell us a little bit about his experience traveling, particularly traveling with Contiki. Traveling is what we've deemed as a luxury backpacker and so forth. So here he is. All right. We're here with my friend Rory from Australia. Rory, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Rory. I come from a small town called Wagga Wagga in rural Australia. And thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me talk about travel and stuff.
No worries. I love talking about travel. You love talking about travel. I feel like it works out well.
Definitely.
Yeah. So where have you all traveled to, or where have you traveled to?
I started traveling probably about 4 years ago after I finished university. And in that time, I've been overseas. I can't even remember how many times now, but I've done most of Western Europe, most of the United States and a bit of Canada, New Zealand, Bali, Vanuatu. I think that's it. I think that's all I've done so far.
That's all so far. No big deal. And why did you decide to go traveling? What sort of inspired you to get going?
Actually, initially I had no huge desire to travel because I never thought it would be something I'd be able to afford to do. So I never really allowed myself to dream about it. But then my nan and I went on a cruise when I was like, I think 21 or 22 or something like that. And that was just so much fun, like even though it was really brief. And then the year after that, I went to Europe for I think 5 or 6 weeks, and I just kind of caught the travel bug, and I've been planning adventures ever since.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of the exact same way. Like my travel started out with just doing vacations with my family, and then I went to Europe like with friends, and I was like, whoa, this is sweet.
Yeah, Europe does that to you.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so you usually travel by yourself, right?
Yeah, I've traveled with friends like a couple of times, but most of the trips, I'd say like 80% of the time, I'm by myself, but not by myself. I'm usually doing a group tour or surrounded by people that are going on the same kind of journey that I am overseas.
Yeah, definitely. And Contiki, obviously, that's how you met Ryan and I, or we met you. We found each other, let's say.
Yeah. So I've done a few Contiki tours and stuff, and I think I've done one bus about tour and a top deck tour. I think that's what I've done so far.
Okay. How did Contiki compare to Top Deck and Bus About?
Bus About, I don't know if I can really compare it because that was like for Sail Croatia, so it was on a boat, so it was going to be pretty different anyway. But Top Deck, I didn't find them that different, to be honest. Like I obviously read a lot of stuff online on message boards and things, and sort of read people comparing different companies and stuff. Like there's the whole Contiki Top Deck rivalry and then the Intrepid G Adventures rivalry and all that sort of thing. But I didn't really find them to be different at all. Like a lot of people said to me initially, Top Deck is a lot less party oriented, and the people that travel on Top Deck are a little bit more mature. And I guess the people were maybe 2 or 3 years older than the average on Contiki, but everyone still drank as much as anyone on the Contiki tour did, and there was still just as much other stuff happening.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like whenever you get like a group of 20 somethings together, that happens, because we like had the same experience in New Zealand. They're like, don't do Kiwi experience, like you're too old for it, like as a couple. like people party. It's like an incest fest. And then it was the same thing on the bus that we went on.
Yeah, I think it's just unavoidable. Like, I think regardless of whether people want to acknowledge it, it's kind of, for a lot of people, it's kind of part of the travel experience is making or having encounters.
Having encounters. That's a polite way to put it. I think too, like one thing I really liked about Contiki was being in the same group for the period of time. Like you really get to know people, which is cool.
I think for me that was the incentive to keep doing group tours. You know, like I'm open to the idea of backpacking and stuff, but I like the idea of knowing that I'm surrounded by the same people for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and that they're not just going to kind of disappear the next day. It gives you more time to get to know them and to sort of actually forge like a stronger bond, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. You get past the questions like, where have you been? Where are you going? Where are you from?
What do you do for a living? All that sort of stuff. And you actually, I don't know, like, I think when you're traveling with people, time is a lot different to like when you're back home and you have friends and stuff. Like back home, if I was to meet someone and become friends with them, it might take 6 months to fully get to know that person. And you can fully get to know a person on tour within like a week. Like after a week, it's like you've known each other for a month. After 2 weeks, it's like you've known each other for 2 months. Like it just happens so much faster because you're around each other like nearly 24/7 for that 2 or 3 week period. So I don't know, like some of my closest friends, like you guys, I've met on tours, and I don't know if I would have that close of a bond if we just run into each other in a hostel for like 2 days or something like that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like we have people on Facebook that we've met in hostels, but often it was like, oh, you're going here in the future? Like we're probably going to cross paths. Like let's connect on Facebook and try and meet up. Whereas like after meeting so many people in Greece, we went to Australia and we saw probably like 10 people from our Contiki tour. And since then we've seen you again, as well as Ricky, who...
Yeah, like we've seen each other on 3 continents now, which is just crazy.
Yeah, that's more than I've traveled with most people, which is pretty cool. Which continent's next for us?
Let's aim for like South America, because that's where I'm.
Yeah, I love South America, so I'm down. I'll go back any day. So do you think it's safe to say that you're kind of more like luxury backpacker? That's kind of the name I've coined it. So
I haven't really done the hostel thing too much. Like I have stayed in hostels and stuff, but I haven't sort of taken 6 months off and just hostel hopped for that amount of time. I've sort of traveled with I would say a higher level of comfort just because I have had the ability to. Like I've been kind of financially able to sort of do tours and stuff like that without having to sort of count every penny.
Yeah, for sure. And that's amazing. You work hard when you're working. Roy's what are you, facilitator of graphic design?
I just finished teaching graphic design at a university here in Wagga Wagga, but I'm also a photographer. I'm also an actual practicing graphic designer. So I do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and you're phenomenal at what you do. So.
Oh, thank you. I work hard, I play hard. It's, you know, that's the limit of balance in my life. It's like if I want to travel as much as I do travel, I have to sort of work ridiculously hard when I am at work. So it pays off though. I get to do what I love whilst I'm working. I get to do what I love when I'm not working. So it works for me.
Yeah, no, and that's amazing. I think that's kind of what we're all searching for out of life, I would say. Work hard, yes. Play hard, get to do what you really, really love to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So the first place you went on Contiki, where was that?
The first Contiki I did was that typical kind of European one where it hit like 11 different cities in like 20 days or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but the first city we started in was London. And so we did the kind of the typical Europe tour where I went like London, Paris, Switzerland, Italy, Austria, Germany, Holland, and then I think back to London after that.
Okay, that's a pretty good loop.
Yeah.
Were you kind of hooked on Contiki right away, or?
No. I think it occurred to me like after I got home and stuff because it really depends on a lot of, like, there's a lot of things that can influence whether you have a good tour or not. And, you know, it can depend on the actual group of people you're with. It can depend on the tour manager you have. And for that particular tour, we had a terrible tour manager. Like, he was just so useless. And, like, you hear all these stories about people going on Contiki or Gap adventures or whatever and just having, like, a terrible tour leader. And that's what we had. We had, like, the cliched nightmare tour leader who just didn't do anything, was hitting on the girls on tour. It was, yeah, he was a bit of a douche. But then, and even our group was a bit weird, like, because you know how most group tours are kind of predominantly female, and you kind of go into it expecting it to be like 75% female, 25% male. Yeah. We had the opposite gender dynamic, so it was like 75% Australian males, and if you've encountered a lot of Australian males, you know how they can be sometimes. And then like 25% females. And so whilst I was on tour, I was loving the travel, but I was like, I don't think I'd do Contiki again. But then after I got home, I was like, you know what, like, I've met some of the most amazing people I've ever encountered in my life on this tour. Like, one of my closest friends, I would say now, I met on that tour 4 years ago. And I sort of feel like if I hadn't gone on that tour, would I have met these people? And so that's always been, I guess, the incentive for me to keep doing it, is because of the people you meet and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. That's so interesting that you came back and were like, I'll never do Contiki again. And since then you've done like so many different Contikis. I think that's really cool. Yeah. Have you ever had like a bad group? Because I think it's safe to say that we both really liked our group in the Greek Islands, and Ryan and I have done another one since then, and we had a really good group aside from one guy who was not so great.
I've had more good groups than I have had bad groups. As I was saying, my first Contiki group was not amazing, but I made 3 or 4 really close friends out of that. When I did the United States last year, I wouldn't say it was a bad group. I didn't really click with too many people, you know. Yeah. Everyone's a different personality, and it's not that I didn't like the people, it's just sometimes you don't have stuff in common and that sort of thing. But even on that tour, I made a couple of really close friends who I know I'll continue talking to for the rest of my life. And so for me, that's what makes it worth it. Even if you just make one really close friend on a tour, it kind of justifies, you know, doing the tour for me. Although I'm sure you could meet people like that backpacking, but I don't know. I just think it's a different social dynamic, the two.
Yeah, I would say it's completely different. Yeah, like I said before, Ryan and I have definitely met people that we connected with, but it's hard if you're on a particular route. I think if you're traveling by yourself, you're super, super open to where you're going next, and you're willing to just make that change in plans when you meet somebody that you click with. I think that you could definitely come home with a friend for life. But Contiki kind of, I think it's, yeah, you definitely meet people where you're going to connect with them, I think.
Yeah, it's sort of built in. It's like, when you go on a Contiki or any other group tour, you can kind of count on the fact that you'll meet people and you'll get to know them, you know, for as long as you're actually on a tour together.
Yeah, for sure. And where did our like Greek Island hopping tour kind of fit in terms of tours for you? Like the tours you've been on, was it one of the better ones, or?
It was definitely one of the better ones. I don't know. I keep in touch with so many people from that tour. Like, I keep in touch with you guys, Ricky, Cara, Tash, Jules, like just so many people, Sarah, Emma. Like, we had a really good group in that tour, and yeah, like that's the exact type of group I hope to get when I go on tours, like where, you know, after one day everyone had already clicked and everyone already knew each other's names and everyone already got along and that sort of thing. New Zealand was amazing for me as well. Spain was amazing. So like more of my tours have been amazing than the ones that haven't been. So yeah, what did you think of the Greek one?
I was like, this is amazing. Like, these people are so cool. Like, it couldn't have worked out any better. And I've been recalling our Contiki tour and just that, like, it's almost like first day of school nervousness before you meet this group of people. It's like, oh, what do I wear? And only having a backpack, it's like, oh, what are my like cleanest clothes? I don't want people to judge me. Like, what's the group going to be like? It's like, oh, what if I hate everyone here and they don't like me and I'm stuck with them for 14 days, 24 hours a day? And it was just yeah, within the first night, I was just so at ease with everyone. I was like, this is so cool.
And I think that's what's good about being in a group as well, is you can't make excuses and you can't chicken out and be like, I'm not going to talk to people. And I think if you're a more reserved or introverted person, it's much harder to do the backpacking thing, because you might be in a hostel and you might go, okay, like, you can very meet people, and sometimes I'm just going to go do my own thing, and then you don't meet anyone. Whereas when you're on a Contiki, it's like you're kind of forced to socialize. Like, even if you don't want to talk to people, it's kind of unavoidable in a good way, because you're kind of forced into getting to know people.
Yeah, for sure. And people in hostels too, like it's hard to read people. And if you're traveling with somebody else, like if Ryan and I are traveling, we ask somebody to go for dinner and they're kind of like shy, but it seems like they're almost being rude and uninterested, then, you know, we're probably not going to try again. And then it's like, it's kind of just a bad situation there.
Yeah.
It's like maybe they're just shy and they're too shy to speak up, and, you know, they're nervous around us, and then we're like, oh, this person is not interested in us, and it just becomes not a good situation for anyone. But in terms of Contiki being, like, it obviously is a really good place for socializing and meeting people. It's also, Ryan and I talked about, we actually did a Greek Islands episode a few weeks ago. We talked about how there's so many additional activities. And if you've never done Contiki before and you go in thinking you've kind of paid for everything, and then the first night it's like, oh, and there's this and this and this and this. What are sort of your thoughts on that?
I sort of understand where they're coming from when they do that, because I guess one of the complaints about tour companies is that you have no freedom to do what you want to do. And there's obviously like things that are included, things that aren't included. In terms of cost, it definitely feels like, oh, they're trying to like squeeze more money out of us, and I don't like that. But then there's stuff that we've been forced to do on tours before, and I was like, I wish this had been optional, because I probably wouldn't have done it. Like a few times on tours, they've taken us to like distilleries, like places where they brew beer, where they brew like Jack Daniels, and I'm like, I would so much rather be doing something else right now. Yeah, I guess when you're trying to plan a trip and you don't necessarily know about all the optionals, it sort of cuts into your budget. And I think that for a lot of people can be kind of restrictive. Like if you're having to decide, okay, I'm going to go paragliding today, it means I can't, I don't know, do something else later on down the line.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that as well. It's kind of hard too, because when you get in a group, like I found with Greek Island Hopping, it was like, I like all these people. Like I want to spend time with them and I want to do things with them, but I don't want to pay more money because I've already paid a bunch. I remember there was kind of like it's almost like peer pressure. It's like if you say no to the activities, like you're kind of excluding yourself.
Yeah, and I found that especially with like those kind of optional group dinners where it was like, you can pay this amount of money to come dine with your friends. And so many times I was like, I really don't want to go do this group dinner, but I was like, I don't want to feel like a social outcast. But then sometimes I just get a few people together and we go do our own thing. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of pressure to do stuff just because you want to sort of be with the people you're hanging out with.
Yeah, definitely. I think I definitely felt that in the Greek islands, and even Ryan and I didn't go to there was like an optional sunset picnic thing. And we chose not to do it because it was like 25 euros and you were only getting snacks. And we're like, then we're going to have to pay for dinner when we get back. So we just didn't do it. But I know it was such a struggle for both of us. Like, bye guys, like everybody have fun. Like, let us know when you get back. Like, don't forget about us in like 3 hours.
It was such an amazing sunset. It was such a good sunset. But yeah, I can definitely see where those sorts of things become more restrictive, I guess. Like I'm sort of trying to plan my next trip at the moment, and I'm already looking at like the optional excursions to work out, okay, how much do I need to budget to actually do stuff in this place once I'm there? And it can really, yeah, it's hard not to want to do everything, because obviously there's so much fun stuff to do. You don't want to miss out on anything. But yeah, like unless you're loaded and you're rich, you probably can't do every single optional that's offered to you.
Yeah, no, that's true for sure. I just had a thought about our Greek island tour. and like how we were talking about the people just connected so well. I'm wondering if part of that was that tour was so chill. Like we didn't do a ton of stuff. So we really just, everyone was super relaxed.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that this morning when I was like preparing for this. I was like, that was not at all what you would expect of a Contiki tour, where it's like fast paced, different city every morning, waking up at 6:30 to like get your bags on the bus at some ridiculous hour. Like it was just 3 days per island, relaxing by the pool, partying. Just it was so relaxed, and I think because of that, no one was waking up grumpy and no one was waking up tired and exhausted. Like everyone was just so kind of at peace, and I think that was really great.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I think that was part of the reason that we really got everybody at their best, because I feel like Contiki, you spend so much time with people and you do so many different things that you become so close because you see people at their best, at their worst, when they're tired, when they're sick. Like
Yeah.
if you're on Contiki for 3 or 4 weeks, you really like people go through all those different things.
Yeah, and I think it's really hard to hide any of those aspects of your personality. Like when you're with people 24/7, you know, if you're having a bad day, you can't really hide that. People are going to know you're having a bad day, but like as long as they accept that and can try to sort of help you, I guess. I don't know. It's always been a really positive vibe though. Like I haven't had too many negative group experiences in that sense.
Yeah, no, like we have only been on 2 of them, but I didn't really have any negative experiences on the Greek Island tour one. And then the one we did in Brazil, there was just one guy that I really like. I was like, I'm good. I don't even want you on Facebook. Like he told Ryan and I that like traveling as a couple was dumb and that it was like too bad for Ryan that he was like stuck with me on this Contiki tour. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I was like, relationships are actually pretty good most of the time. I don't need to hook up with random people to feel happy. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. So for people who are looking to do a trip, don't necessarily have a friend that they want to travel with or that wants to travel with them, would you recommend a Contiki tour or a bus boat?
Yeah, definitely. I think do your research and work out what sort of travel style you're going for. If you are, I guess, less into partying, or maybe you're a little bit older than the kind of average age, look into other companies. Like there's so many different companies that offer so many different sort of packages and stuff. Like Contiki and Top Deck, I would say, are more for your 18 to sort of 28-year-olds who are looking to hit as many cities as possible in as short time frame as possible. And there's obviously going to be a lot of drinking and unavoidably a lot of hooking up and stuff. But then you've got companies like Intrepid or like G Adventures or Gecko or Toucan, which I think have smaller groups, have more sort of off the beaten track itineraries and that sort of stuff. So I think there's actually something out there for everyone. But then if your heart is set on backpacking by yourself, you know, more power to you. Like I would love to feel independent enough to be able to just backpack by myself for 6 months. But I think if you are a bit more hesitant, or you're more introverted, or you're more shy, or you just prefer being around the group, like I would absolutely recommend group tours because I've had so many positive experiences from them.
Yeah, definitely. And have you found too that it kind of puts you more at ease when you're somewhere that's so different from home?
Yeah, I think just little things like having a guide that speaks the local language can obviously tear down some of those barriers that you have to sort of navigate by yourself, or using like a little language book and that sort of thing. So like when we were in Spain, our guide spoke Spanish pretty fluently, so that made it a lot easier when we wanted to know how to say something, or just if we were with someone that we couldn't get across if he was there. It made it a lot easier to communicate and that sort of thing. I don't know. It's a bit of like a safety net, I guess. It's a more comfortable way of sort of diving into that stuff. And I think a lot of people probably start off doing group tours and that sort of thing, and maybe progress into doing more of the backpacker thing once they're more comfortable. So I think like if you're new and you're sort of wanting to get a taste of travel, that's a really good way to do it.
Yeah, flying from Greece over to Southeast Asia, Ryan and I were just like in our hostel, so tired and jet lagged, and just being like, we miss our Contiki group. Like, I wish they would have come to Bangkok with us. Like, we should have booked something for here. Like, it does really help you get your foot in the door for travel.
Yeah, for sure.
I had a question, but I just lost it. Um, yeah, I'm not too sure. It's not coming back to me. What's been your favorite place that you've ever been to? Contiki or not Contiki?
Um, I've been to so many cool places, so it's hard to choose. Like, I don't think I've been to too many places that I haven't loved, but country-wise, I would say Spain. Spain was, I don't know. I kind of went to Spain not really expecting anything. It was just sort of my backup when, like, I was originally planning to go to Egypt, and then there were all the issues in Egypt around then, and I was like, it's probably not too safe to go there. So I was like, I'll go to Spain. Um, Ended up just loving it. Loved the food, loved the culture, loved the people, loved the weather. It was just amazing. But city wise, I don't think I've ever had such an intense reaction to a city as when I stepped in New Orleans for the first time. Like, that just blew me away. Like, I was just in love with New Orleans.
Oh, that's cool. That's still on my list for sure.
Yeah.
So Spain and New Orleans. I loved Spain. Spain was one of my favorite countries in Europe, so I'm up there. And you've also traveled
Yeah.
Scandinavia as well with your nan, right?
Yeah. So last year I came back from America because I was really sick, and I was sort of like bargaining with whoever the higher power is. And I was like, if you give me my money back through my travel insurance claim, I promise to use it to do something good. I'll take my nan to Europe for her birthday. And so the travel insurance money came through, and I was like, oh, thank you. And being a man of my word, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. So I sat my nan down, and I was like, I'm taking you to Scandinavia for your birthday. And she was just like, okay. So we just did a cruise, and that was, I guess, kind of like doing a tour because we ended up seeing like a different city every day. So we started in Copenhagen, and then went to Oslo and Aarhus in Denmark, and we went to, where else did we go? We went to Estonia and Berlin and St. Petersburg and Finland and Stockholm. So yeah, that was I think as close to a Contiki as my nan was going to get, having to do a different city every day. But yeah, that was amazing. Like, it's such a cool part of the world, and such a, I don't know, it's not, I wouldn't say it's rarely seen, but I think a lot of people that go to Europe kind of forget about that area, and they just sort of stick to the sort of mainland area down the bottom.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. That's on my list for sure. I need to get a big girl job and save some more money though. What was it like going on a cruise after spending so much time doing Contiki, which is assuming super, super different in terms of demographic, all of that?
Yeah. I mean, most of the cruise ship, I would say, were like 60 to 80-year-old American or Italian couples. And then me, I was 26 at the time, and my 87-year-old grandmother. But I really liked it. Like, it's a much more relaxed way of traveling because obviously all your luggage is on board and you don't have to pack your bag every day, which just makes such a huge difference in terms of how relaxed you feel. But yeah, it was good. I think it was really good for my nan because we're only over there for 2 weeks. We're only in Europe for 2 weeks, so we flew over there, did our 26-hour flight over there, spent our 2 weeks, and then came back. So as a short trip, I think it was really good to be able to see that number of places that easily, and also just to have all those sort of inclusions, like having all your meals and all that sort of stuff included on board. But I guess like Contiki, they make a lot of their money by offering like those optional excursions and stuff. So that's where it became a bit more expensive. But I really liked it. I don't think it's for everyone. But for old people, I think it's definitely great.
Yeah.
My nan loved it.
I think it's like, it touches my heart so much that you took her on that trip. Like, seeing the photos of you guys together, you can tell that she just was so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. And such a cool experience. Like, I don't think you have to just travel one way. I think it's cool to see different parts of the world in all different ways.
Yeah. I don't think too many people travel with their grandmothers, and I would actually like highly recommend it. Like, it's so different to traveling by yourself or with your friends and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. That's super cool. My dad actually took his mom on a trip to France a few years ago. And then my mom and my brother went as well. It was like they went over right before Ryan and I actually flew to Europe the first time. And yeah, he said it was like super fun. It was kind of like they had 3 generations there. Like my brother's like eating a ton and like drinking a ton, and my grandma's like napping in the afternoons and just just enjoying life. But it's pretty cool. I remembered what I was going to ask you before. Just gonna, like, with Contiki, do you ever feel like you lose out on like cultural experiences because you're with people from like Australia, UK, Canada, US?
I think you'd probably miss out on interacting more with the locals and stuff. And so I think if that's something that really drives you to travel, it may not be for you. Like, I think you become so complacent with the fact that you have all these people already surrounding you that you don't make as much effort to talk to just locals and that sort of thing. But then, I don't know, on some of my Contikis, I would just like wander off on my own, and I would just people who ran like little gift shops and stuff. Like when I was in Santa Fe, I was having this conversation with this lady who ran just like the gift store at like this museum, and she was so friendly, and actually everyone in Santa Fe was so friendly. So I don't know, there's nothing really restricting you. It's just, I think you become more comfortable and you kind of forget about that. And you kind of, especially if you're Australian, like traveling on any group tour, there's always like an abundance of Australians. So if you're trying to get away from Australians, do not do a group tour. Like, you're just always surrounded by them. And for me, like, hearing an Australian accent when you're in like any non-English speaking country, it just makes you want to, I don't know. It's just like, why
throw something?
Yeah, why did I travel all this way just to hear Australian accents? Like, you just want to, I don't know.
It's funny, like traveling Europe, it's like Australians are just everywhere. I remember like going to Australia, I'm like, is there going to be anyone my age in Australia? Like, I feel like they're all in Europe or Canada or the US.
Yeah, I think we're just a really privileged country, and a lot of Australians get to travel. Like, I think Canada is probably similar. I think America less so, but yeah, Australians, like, it's just normal for Australians to take like a gap year after high school or after university and just travel. So like, fortunately, you know, I've been able to travel because of that as well. So it works in my favor.
Yeah. Canada's becoming more like culturally on board with the gap year. America, not so much. But I think it's so cool that Australia's culture is about encouraging their young people to get out and see the world.
Yeah, I think especially among our generation here, like, there's a very different outlook on life compared to, I guess, the way our parents and that sort of older generation viewed life. Because in some ways, I guess we're really privileged, but in other ways, like, to settle down and buy a house and get a mortgage and that sort of thing is becoming less and less likely of a possibility for our generation. So I think a lot of us have just gone #YOLO, #no regrets. I'm not going to put this money towards a house. I'm going to use it to travel and see the world. And I think, I don't know, just knowing a lot of old people who have sort of said to me, like, I wish I had traveled more when I was your age, it makes me go, okay, well, if that's what they're saying, then maybe I should sort of take that on board. And especially with my nan, like, my nan, she traveled a bit when she was younger and stuff, but in the latter years of her life, she always put it off. Like, she had to cancel a round the world trip when my mother got sick, and she had to cancel a trip to New Zealand when her brother-in-law got sick and that sort of thing. And then in the last 3 or 4 years of her life, she ended up going overseas like 3 times, twice to Europe. And just seeing how much like she loved that, it made me love it more as well. Like, to see an 87-year-old woman, and she was still quite nimble, like she was still healthy and able to get around and that sort of thing. But to see an 87-year-old woman sort of light up like the kid in the candy store because she's seeing Finland for the first time or whatever, it just reminds you of how much travel can actually impact you and how much it can affect the way that you like experience life, the way you perceive the world and that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of my, like, I want people to travel because of how much it's impacted me in a positive way. Obviously you've experienced that as well. Is there anything else that you feel like travel has really helped you like fears you've grown out of or things that's helped you overcome?
I think just in general, it's made me a bit more of a social person because I can be really shy and stuff, and it kind of, I don't know, pushes your comfort zone a bit more and gets you, I don't know, when I'm traveling, I try a lot more foods that I wouldn't normally order back home. I try a lot more activities that I wouldn't normally do back home. Like when I went to New Zealand, I went there with a fear of heights and I came back without a fear of heights. Like the number of bungee jumps and just adrenaline sort of adventure stuff that I did whilst I was over there, it kind of encouraged me to try new things. Whereas when you're back home, you just kind of, you can become kind of complacent with life and you just get used to routine and doing the same thing over and over again. So it kind of just throws that off balance and, I don't know, wakes you up. It's like a nice splash of water in your face in the morning. It just wakes you up and reminds you there's so much stuff out there. The world is such a big place. There are so many things to try and do before you kick the bucket. And so, I don't know, I think that's what drives me to continue traveling.
Yeah, you put that wonderfully. I feel the exact same way. And I think too, when you're at home, so for example, for you with a fear of heights, it's if you've grown up and it's like, oh, my name's Rory, I have a fear of heights. It's almost like it's a label that's like stuck on you that shouldn't be on you because it's not even a thing. And it's like, so then you can go somewhere and nobody knows you. And it's like, I don't have to be scared of heights here. Like I can overcome that.
Yeah, you can be whoever you want to be. You can, you know, do whatever you want to do without feeling like you've been sort of put in a box, basically.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about travel. One of them. I have hundreds. I love everything about travel. So what's next for you? Where are you going to go next?
I've been trying to plan my next trip for like, I feel like about 6 months now. My mind changes every couple of weeks or so, but the one place that is absolutely on my list is Mexico. I've been trying to plan Mexico for about 3 years now, but it kept getting put on the back burner. I kept making excuses and letting people convince me that it was too unsafe, but I don't know. I think about Mexico every single day and I'm like, I have to go there.
Like if you're thinking about it every day, that's just experience.
Yeah, it's a sign I have to go there. But I don't know. I'm sort of planning to take a gap year next year and just try to see as much of the world as I can. So I would really love to do what you guys did and do as much of South America as possible. Recently, I was like, Turkey. I want to go to Turkey. And then maybe Thailand as well and Morocco. I don't know. There's so many places, but Mexico is definitely number one at the moment.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. Turkey's on my list too, so maybe we'll have to chat about that. One of my friends went this past summer and she took photos hot air ballooning. I was like, oh my God, I want to do that.
I don't know how to pronounce the city or place. I think it's Cappadocia.
It's something like that.
Yeah, the place with all the hot air balloons. I saw photos of that and I was like, I have to go there. I think, especially as a photographer, I was like, I need a photograph in my portfolio of all those hot air balloons.
Yeah, and like with a good camera, I can't even imagine like what you could capture because her photos with her iPhone were jaw-dropping. It was so amazing. Oh, that's cool. So Mexico, whereabouts in Mexico do you want to go?
More of the sort of colonial cities like Puebla and I really want to go to San Miguel de Allende and Guanajuato and Oaxaca and those sorts of places. I think a lot of people, when you tell them you want to go to Mexico, they automatically think of Cancun. But I'm hoping, not that I've been there yet, obviously, but I'm hoping that I find that there's more to Mexico than just the beach resorts and stuff. I want to sort of experience street food and just sort of, I don't know, like I love the actual style of just their residential architecture there and the way their houses look and that sort of thing. And yeah, see more of the colonial cities, I guess, and the UNESCO sites and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think Mexico is such like a all-inclusive family destination for North Americans. It's like I've been to Mexico 4 times, but I've been to Mexico 4 times in resorts. So it's like I've vacationed there, but I've never traveled there. And yeah. I think it's completely like 2 different Mexicos.
Yeah, I think it depends where you're coming from as well. I think for Australians, Mexico is probably a very different experience to North Americans in the same way that when North Americans go to Bali, they experience it completely different to Australians. Because I guess Bali for us is like Cancun to North Americans. It's sort of our, okay, this is where I'm going to go to vacay and stay in a resort and just party and that sort of thing. Whereas obviously North Americans view Bali as this beautiful spiritual place, and we probably view Mexico a bit differently to that as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting how that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool going to Jamaica. Like, Jamaica is such a big, all-inclusive place, and just like completely avoiding that because the culture there is so cool. It's like, I feel like you lose so much of the culture when you do something like an all-inclusive.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's fun. It's relaxing. Like, nothing wrong with it, but I think it's not really, like, it's not traveling. It's vacationing.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very different things.
Yes, definitely. Any other like tidbits on travel, tips, anything else you want to touch on?
Tips. I guess my tip would be to just make it happen. Like, a lot of people I know want to travel, but they sort of say, you know, I can't travel because of work, or I can't travel because of money and that sort of thing. And I think there's always a way to make it happen. And you just have to make it a priority. Like, before I started traveling, I just spent money on just stuff like electronics and stuff that I don't need in my life. And then when travel started becoming a priority for me, I would actually make conscious decisions when I went to the store and stuff. I was like, I could buy this $20 CD because CDs are expensive in Australia, or I could put this money towards eating moussaka in Greece. And so I think if you want to travel, you just got to actually commit, make it happen. Just open a savings account that's separate to your normal one and just put money in there and just do it. And I think it changes your life for me in a better way. Like, I'm not as materialistic now as I used to be, because, you know, with $1,000 you could buy a new TV, or you could go to a new place that you've never been to before and experience new things you've never experienced before. And so it just became an easy decision after the first time I went overseas. So I guess that's my main tip, is to just, if you want to travel, make it a priority and make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's perfect. And that's what I did too. Opened a savings account that I couldn't touch. And then I feel like after you go, you're hooked. And then it's so much easier to say no to that piece of clothing you don't need, or that item that you don't need at home. And it's almost too, now I think about, if I buy stuff, I'm like, this means I have to pay for a bigger storage unit when I go away again. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah. And I'm the same. I'm becoming so much more detached from my personal belongings. I'm, you know, looking at selling my house in the near future so that I can just uproot myself and sort of live nomadically for a little bit. And just looking at my actual house, I'm like, oh, I don't actually have as much stuff as I used to have. Like, I don't know, we become so wrapped up in everything that advertising tells us to buy that doesn't really bring us happiness. But I think, you know, stuff like travel and those sorts of experiences brings you actual happiness. And once you start feeling that, you become less compelled to go buy a PlayStation, or go buy a television, or go buy a $30,000 car that you don't need. I think we buy a lot of that stuff because deep down we're not completely fulfilled. And I think travel can bring like a lot of that fulfillment and happiness to people that I think a lot of people are missing in their lives.
Yeah, I'm 100%. I agree with you. I think that I don't even know where I would be if I hadn't spent a year traveling. Like, I have no idea what I would be doing or what I would be like. I know I wouldn't be the same person that I am now.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd probably have way more stuff. I already have enough stuff. I need to get rid of it. You only need what fits in your suitcase.
Exactly.
Maybe a few other things, but mostly just that. Cool. Anything else you want to touch on, or?
I think that's it. I think you've asked me every question I can answer at this point.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been awesome chatting with you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much for having me.
No worries. Thanks for coming on the show.
Great.
All right, so that was the interview with Rory. I hope that everyone enjoyed that. You can check out the show notes at www.theworldwanders.com or send us an email at theworldwanderspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.